With that, we're gonna begin section 2, where we have Anita Castro and Eva Shaw, two of our consultants on the special education team, presenting on what do we mean when we say a comprehensive special education evaluation. And before we do that, type in the chat one word. We've done this in a lot of presentations in the past, and it's always fun to see what people put. Type in one word. What comes to mind before we tell you what we think? What comes to mind when you hear the term comprehensive evaluation? It can be a word, a couple words. And as you're doing that, I'm going to hand it over to Anita Castro.
Thank you, Danielle. And it's interesting to see the words coming in. So take a peek at that as we're going through the presentation. I'm going to shut down my chat so it doesn't distract me. So on this first slide here, we have a number of legal citations. And we wanted to point out that state and federal statutes, rules, and regulations actually address comprehensive special education evaluation. Reference to comprehensive evaluation is specifically found in the Federal Code of Regulations, and that's the first link on the slide, where it states, in evaluating each child with a disability, the evaluation is sufficiently comprehensive to identify all of the child's special education and related services needs, whether or not commonly linked to the disability category in which the child has been classified. Our state statute, which is the second link, is aligned very closely with the federal regulations and specifies the evaluation process must determine whether a child is a child with a disability and the educational needs of the child. And finally, our administrative code, the Wisconsin Administrative Code PI 11, includes rules related to our state's criteria for each disability category. At its core, special education evaluation is a two-step process, not an event. It consists of procedures to determine if the child is a child with a disability or continues to be, and to determine the educational needs of the child. A full and individual evaluation must be conducted before the initial provision of special education. In conducting the evaluation, the IEP team must use assessment tools and strategies, as well as information provided by the parents, to determine whether the child is a child with a disability and the content of the child's IEP, including information related to enabling the child to be involved in and progress in the general curriculum, or for preschool children to participate in appropriate activities. Child with a disability is defined in state and federal statutes, and the citations are provided on the slide, as a child who meets criteria for at least one of the disability categories and needs special education and related services. Note the two components of the definition of a child with a disability. First, the student must meet criteria for one of the disability categories, and in those statutes, each disability category is named. And then second, as a result of the disability, the student needs special education services. The federal regulations clarify that if a child meets the criteria for a disability category, but does not need special education, the child is not a child with a disability. In this case, an IEP would not be developed for the student. Having a need for special education means the student needs specially designed instruction. Special education is actually defined in statute to mean specially designed instruction provided at no cost to the parents to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. And then specially designed instruction is also defined in statute, and it means adapting as appropriate to the needs of an eligible child, the content, methodology, or delivery of instruction to address the unique needs of the child that result from the child's disability and to ensure access of the child to the general curriculum so that the child can meet the educational standards within the jurisdiction of the school district that apply to all children. So if a child meets criteria for a disability category, but does not specifically need specially designed instruction, the student is not found eligible for special education and an IEP is not developed for the child. Other supports in regular education should be considered. A comprehensive special education evaluation is not and should not be disability category specific. The evaluation must identify all of the child's special education and related service needs, whether or not commonly linked to the disability category in which the child has been classified. For instance, a student with an emotional behavioral disability might have a need for specially designed reading instruction. A special education evaluation does not just result in labeling a child with a particular disability category, as Daniel mentioned. The comprehensive evaluation provides child-specific information useful for educational decision-making. Documenting whether a student meets criteria for a particular disability category by itself does not provide sufficient information to identify the student's strengths and needs, or to determine whether the student needs special education, or in other words, specially designed instruction. To answer this question, the team must be able to identify the student's academic and functional skill needs, the extent of those needs, and whether those needs can be met solely by regular education or require special education. To be able to identify the student's academic and functional skill needs, the extent of those needs, and whether the needs can be met solely by regular education or require special education, the IEP team conducting the evaluation must have existing data at the time of the review of data, or must collect additional data and information about the student's present levels of academic and functional skills in order to determine the effects of the student's disability and determine the student's disability-related needs. This information is subsequently used by the IEP team following the evaluation to develop IEP goals and identify all of the special education services a student may require to address their disability-related needs. This means the team must have the information needed to make decisions about how to educate the student so the student can access instruction and make progress toward meeting the expectations and standards that apply to all students of the same age or grade. Whether the IEP team is conducting an initial evaluation or a reevaluation, the evaluation must be comprehensive. A student's disability-related needs will likely change over time. The reevaluation is especially important for identifying new educational needs. For some of the disability categories, a student does not have to meet initial criteria during a reevaluation, but only must continue to need specially designed instruction. These include intellectual disability, blind and visually impaired, deaf and hard of hearing, deaf-blind, speech or language impairment, and specific learning disability. For these categories, the IEP team does not have to complete the initial criteria prompts on a disability category criteria worksheet during a reevaluation, although they may, and best practice might be to do so. However, the IEP team must determine if the student continues to have a disability that adversely affects the student's educational performance and needs specially designed instruction. And now I'll turn it over to Eva.
Thank you, Anita. To summarize what Anita shared, IEP teams should be aware that reviewing the information collected to apply the disability category criteria will help IEP teams determine if the student is a child with a disability. However, that is not sufficient for completing a comprehensive special education evaluation and for developing a student's IEP. As Anita shared, IEP teams should remember that the evaluation is a two-pronged process that requires the IEP team to determine if, one, a student meets the criteria for one or more disability categories, and two, if as a result, the student needs specially designed instruction or special education. A comprehensive special education evaluation exists within a district's equitable multi-level systems of support, and achieving educational equity is built on the foundation of those systems of support. An equitable multi-level systems of support is a framework made up of 11 key system features represented in the graphic. This framework helps districts and schools integrate and organize supports for learners, including developmental, academic, behavioral, and social and emotional supports. It helps districts and schools provide equitable services, practices, and resources to every learner. And it helps districts and schools responsibly adjust the intensity and nature of supports to match learner needs based on data. A strong, equitable, multi-level systems of support enhances the quality and relevance of data and other information that can and should be used to make special education eligibility decisions and provide information about the continuum of supports. The stronger a school and district's equitable, multi-level system of support is, the easier it will be to conduct a comprehensive special education evaluation that accurately considers and identifies a student's category of disability, such as autism or intellectual disability, as well as to identify the student's developmental and educational needs. IDEA assumes that students have had access to high quality general education within an equitable multi-level system of support. This includes access to the resources and educational rigor the student needs at the right moment in their education across race, gender, ethnicity, language, ability, sexual orientation, family background, and family income. In fact, IDEA requires that IEP teams consider general exclusions to special education eligibility based on this assumption. Under IDEA, a student may not be found eligible to receive special education services if any of the following general exclusions are the determinate reason for the IEP team decision that the student meets eligibility criteria. A lack of appropriate instruction in reading, including instruction in the essential components of reading, lack of appropriate instruction in math, or limited English proficiency. And also note that some disability categories have additional exclusionary factors that must be considered. In addition to the IEP team having collective knowledge and expertise about the student, age and grade level academic and functional skill standards and expectations, and IDEA evaluation procedural requirements, every individual who participates in the comprehensive special education evaluation process must also have knowledge and skills to address bias that may show up during the evaluation process. One way to address bias and ensure that IEP teams get a comprehensive and culturally responsive picture of the whole student during the evaluation is for the team to work together to gather information that includes knowledge of the student's strengths as well as concerns and challenges. Because knowledge of strengths and challenges can be culturally biased, and to assist teams in addressing bias in special education evaluations, IEP teams can come to understand a student's needs more clearly when they ask questions about concerns and strengths across academic and functional skill areas and across different learning environments, when they actively involve all team members in the evaluation process, including parents, families, and caregivers, when they have balanced and robust discussion about all the information the IEP team has about the needs of an individual student, and when they openly discuss and consider potential effects of racial and cultural bias. The better the picture the IEP team has of a student at the point of referral, the more efficient and effective the review of existing data will be. And that will lead to a more focused collection of additional data and other information during the evaluation. In addition, information about the whole child enriches IEP team discussion and helps stay focused on the student's educational needs, including how the IEP team can leverage student strengths to address challenges and barriers. During a comprehensive special education evaluation, as we work to get a balanced view of the whole child, it is not that we're going to look at everything, it is that we are not going to miss anything. The review of existing data step in the evaluation process is a key moment when information from the referral and other existing data can help identify areas of concerns and which disability category criteria will need to be considered during the evaluation. Knowing what information will likely be needed to consider eligibility for special education before getting parental consent for additional testing helps ensure nothing is missed during the evaluation process. Specifically, the IEP team does not want to be in a situation in which new information comes to light near the end of the evaluation timeline, or be in a situation where a student is found to meet category criteria, but the evaluation did not identify a key area of disability-related need that affects the student's access, engagement, and progress in general education, and thus requires special education services. Now, based on the information that we've presented so far, how has your working definition of special education evaluation evolved? And what aspects of special education evaluation have been further reinforced? There are a lot of great responses in the last reflection in chat. So I'm hoping that you can add to chat, share a phrase or sentence that reflects your understanding of the meaning of comprehensive special education evaluation, if that's changed, or if you can add to your earlier thoughts. And if you can add that, feel free to keep adding your thoughts as we move on to objective 3 on adapting a needs versus label mindset.